We have the one and only, the lady herself, Ann Coulter, the author of a gajillion bestsellers, all of which are on my shelf, including her latest, Resistance is Futile, and also one of her most brilliant ones before that, which is Adios, America. Ann, welcome to Brietbart News Tonight.
This is why I love you, Rebecca.
The intros are fun, aren't they? Well, you know what? I'll tell you what, Ann Coulter, you've written a book on like pretty much every major topic of importance before our republic, and at some point or another. And your very first book was about impeachment. I remember, because again, that one's on my shelf too. And so you are an expert on impeachment. In fact, many of the books that followed your great book on impeachment that you wrote during the whole Clinton impeachment thing, quote you or steal your thesis from that book because it was really brilliantly researched. And so you are the person to talk to as we are entering a new phase of impeachment hysteria, it seems.
Yeah.
What do you think of this thing, this whole impeachment
hello,
inquiry?
John Hayward.
Hello. Welcome back.
Good to be here. No, you're exactly right. And look, I'm pointing this out all over, but it's always worth pointing out when liberals are lying. Obviously, when I wrote High Crimes and Misdemeanors, I wouldn't have been stingy about the ground. So I was making the case to impeach Bill Clinton. Went back through the history of the phrase high crimes and misdemeanors over the past 400 years. If there were a single clause in that book that liberals could cite to say, you see, back when they wanted to impeach Clinton, well, the grounds were quite a bit different then. No. There is not one sentence that they could use to help them in this nonsense. Because, to state it most clearly, policy disagreements can never be grounds for impeachment. High crimes, they think they're so clever. On MSNBC, always perkily announcing it doesn't have to be a real crime. No, it doesn't. There is a meaning to high crimes and misdemeanors. There's a difference in fire and a firefly, and there is a lot of legal history to that. It tends to be a character defect. It's public drunkenness. It's lechery. It's bribery. So there can be overlap with things that are actual crimes. But the idea that it is a fault in the person. Now, of course, any liberal will say that about Trump, but why do they say that about Trump? Because they disagree with his policies. And they find him icky. But liberals finding a president icky is not grounds for an impeachment.
Well, let's talk about this, though, because the other thing they say is that he was using pursuing his personal and political interests in this whole phone conversation that he had with his counterpart in Ukraine, where he was putting pressure on this Ukrainian counterpart to give up the dirt on Joe Biden or something like this. So this personal and political thing, this is what they seem to be zeroing in on. Is there anything to that?
Well, yes, I've been listening to MSNBC between the Cardinals-Nationals game. The poor Cardinals. Oh, boy, they got blown away tonight. Third game, too. I just hope the Nationals face the Yankees. But anyway, yes, I've been listening to a lot of this on MSNBC. And two things about that before we get to the specifics. One thing, I haven't watched MSNBC for a while. I can only take so much of their nonsense and childishness. But one thing I write about in Demonic, about mobs, how mobs behave, and my thesis of the book is that liberalism relies on groupthink and mobs and ginning people up to, like a passion with sayings and slogans, and that is not a good way. That is not a good way to govern or to form a civilization. But wow, do you see it with this impeachment stuff? Because it's very striking to me how often, as they did with Nixon, you could win a bar bet. Ask someone in a bar, what did Nixon do to be impeached? Oh, he tore up the Constitution. It's like a certain TV host misuse of the word literally. No, he did not tear up the Constitution. Tell us what he did. And what you hear on MSNBC are, he's using mob tactics. He ought to form a criminal gang. He's using the White House as an ATM. It's just metaphor after metaphor after metaphor. If if what he actually did would help them, I promise you they would tell us. But they don't. They just want to gin up people who already hate Trump into thinking it was... I heard one woman on MSNBC today. I did a lot of watching MSNBC today to catch up on my daily impeachment news. And one woman went on at some length, thinking herself quite clever. We don't have to look for what the crime is. He said he committed a crime right on TV when he asked China for its help. Okay, and I'm yelling at the TV. I'm half a Southerner, so I do talk back to the TV. I'm yelling at the TV. What's the crime? Name the statute. Name the statute, please. I mean, yes, you can't. There is a statute that was, but arguably, I think it certainly looks more corrupt, violated by Joe Biden, using your office to benefit you yourself personally or a member of your family. I think we got that. But here it's investigate corruption of a public official. So, I mean, to come in after the fact and say, yes, but he's running against Trump for president. Well, okay, but it looks pretty corrupt. And you don't get to not have your corruption and possible actual legal violation. I forget the section, though I could email it to you when I get off the phone. It is actually a crime for a public official to use the benefits of his office to benefit his family members or himself. That's what it certainly looks like with Biden, and I will not be like liberals and say, oh, we use the vice presidency like an ATM. I mean, I'm sure your audience knows this, but while he was vice president, he holds up a $1 billion check, whatever it was, $800 million, for Ukraine until the president of Ukraine fired a prosecutor investigating a company that was paying Biden's son multiple millions of dollars for mysterious reasons. Now,
oh no, actually,
I am. And for the president of the United States to ask a foreign leader to help us investigate or look into it, at least put the prosecutor, the Ukrainian prosecutor was looking at this before Trump said anything about it. It was Biden who got that prosecutor called off. So there was some reason to look into it. And to say that no, Trump can't ask for corruption to be looked into by a foreign country, okay, why doesn't everybody just run for president? Why didn't El Chapo run for president? Bernie Madoff announced, I'm running for president. You can't look into me.
You know, I have to tell you though, Hunter Biden was doing something for Burisma Holdings. That was the gas company that he sat on the board of, this Ukrainian oligarch-owned company. He was in charge of, get this, transparency and good governance. I'm not lying. That's what they said in their press statement announcing his joining the board. And this happened, of course, he joined the board just a couple months after he got bounced out of the U.S. Navy reserves because he tested positive to cocaine use. So he goes from that to, hey, you got this sweetheart deal for good governance and transparency and this one of the most corrupt companies in a very corrupt country. But there was nothing to look there, nothing to see there. Just move along, folks. I guess. We're not allowed to ask.
I don't think that's going to fly with Americans, because eventually Democrats are going to have to say something other than, he's using the White House as an ATM, he's tearing up the Constitution, he may as well be in the mob. That is not illustrative of what they want people to understand. Ultimately, they have to get to the facts, and I don't think anyone is going to be disturbed that Trump thought this was something to be looked into. I think most Americans would like it looked into.
To life when this impeachment machine started spinning up. My first thought was that the Democrats are really underestimating how the American people would react to the news about what the Bidens were doing, because the Democrats think this is very genteel corruption. This is standard Beltway corruption. They've covered themselves. They've made sure there's no smoking guns that show it was a corrupt arrangement, but everybody just understands that if you want to do business with the United States and you want Vice President Biden on board, you got to hire his son, you got to hire his brother, you got to throw some money his way. That's that's how these things are done. That's how these people show up in Washington with empty wallets, and they all leave multimillionaires a couple of years later when they're finished with their term in office. And I think they really, really underestimated what people were going to say when the story exploded. And they said, what? Hunter Biden was paid how much for doing what? In the Ukraine? This whole thing just stank so badly to high heaven. I think the media was really rocked on its heels by the first wave of public reaction at how they were disgusted at Biden, not Trump.
Well, I hope Republicans were. I totally agree. I hope Republicans were rocked on their heels, too. I mean, this reporting by Peter Schweitzer, it's not like he's going after only the Democrats. He's been going after Mitch McConnell and Elaine Chao for some time. And, yeah, I agree, John. It really does stink to high heaven. These guys show up, penniless to the United States Senate and leave multimillionaires. Look, you got the cush job, you got the fame, you have the nice office, and then all the staff. You're not supposed to also be making money off of, quote, public service.
Well, meanwhile, their policy towards China has changed remarkably in China's the last 20, 30 years. Mitch McConnell was once...
looks like it.
Mitch McConnell was once kind of hardline, right?
Doing a fantastic job reporting this stuff. And any of your listeners who haven't looked this up, look up Schweitzer. He has a book that goes through all of them, including, what's the name of it? I'm never promoting anybody else's book. But
no, Secret Empires. He's a friend of ours. Yeah, Secret Empires. He's like a regular. No, our listeners know it. No, absolutely. And you're like generous to everybody. But let me talk to you also. I want to get your take on what's going to happen tomorrow with this Democrat debate. Do you think any of these Democrat 2020 contenders are going to pummel Joe on the Hunter issues? Because Hunter Biden, by the way, tomorrow morning's got an interview on Good Morning America. So we'll see if they softball, that interview, or if they actually ask him some tough stuff.
Oh, interesting. Biden's probably trying to do it right before the debate because he's worried about. I'm sure he is prepared for. Probably one of the questioners. What is it? CNN, New York Times. Presumably one of the questions will be about that, and they'll all nod in agreement when when he explains that it wasn't corrupt. Yeah, that's actually been a problem. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been noticing since I do read the liberal media that liberal commentators and far left commentators, I mean at least the smart ones, have been saying, Democrats, you got to knock this off because Trump is not going to neglect to raise the weaknesses of your opponent. So just jump in and, let's let the strongest one rise. We need some Democrat to go after. There's a Frank Bruni column, I don't know, sometime this week, maybe it was today. He said somebody's got to force an answer from Elizabeth Warren about hiking taxes on the middle class to pay for Medicare for all, and somebody's got to go after Biden. And, he went through various of the candidates saying, to keep getting applause lines, this is what I'm saying, by denouncing Trump, this isn't setting us up to beat Trump. I don't know. I look at the Democratic field and, I mean, up until a month ago, I was not at all copacetic about Trump's reelection for the reasons I have discussed before. And also, I mean, it was a close election, and Democrats were caught sleeping. Everybody thought Hillary was going to win. The media has been just in nonstop hysteria against this guy for 4 years. Even if he had kept his promises, I think it would be very tough for him, or not very tough, but not a shoo-in, his reelection. But watching these Democrats, they are just doing everything they can to throw the election to him.
Yes. Now let's talk about that because, as you said, they're probably going to. I kind of think with the Hunter Biden interview tomorrow, what's going to happen is they're going to try to focus on his drug problems and his bizarro love life. I need a flow chart to figure out that love life.
No. Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah.
So they'll try to make him look like he's he's just like, the family member of yours who has a drug problem, and isn't he a sad story? Overlooking the fact that this family member has $1 billion deals with countries that, So he's not your typical drug addict, okay, who's down and out on his luck. He's not down and out at all. So I think they'll focus on that in order to focus away from the obvious, because this is the way the media does it. But and I'm wondering if, like, I'm guessing maybe like a Tulsi Gabbard is the one that'll have the, the guts to actually call him out.
I'm so glad she's going to be in the debate. You're right. If anybody does, it will probably be Tulsi. You remind me, this is an old trick of liberals when they are caught doing something. I mean, hopefully Biden won't do this. I have more respect for him than these other ones. But a million years ago, whenever Gore was running for president, I think he ran a couple of times. But anyway, he was going on and on about, the public schools and teachers and the public schools. And there was a black reporter in New York, I think it was a debate at the Apollo Theater, who said to him, you're such a big proponent of the public schools. Why do all your kids go to private schools? And, okay, this is the classic response that you usually get from the Democrats. Don't you bring my family into this.
Yep.
Well, no,
yep.
Wait a second. It's not your family. It's blinding hypocrisy is what we're asking about. And remember, well, you're fetuses. You don't remember. Bill Clinton did the same thing with Hillary. Don't you attack my wife.
Oh, the co-president, you mean? The person that he he declared her a co-president with him, but we're not allowed to attack her. And by the way, that's exactly what you're right, Ann, because that is exactly what Joe Biden has already been doing. He's been, and his friendly media allies have been calling Hunter Biden his child. A 40-something-year-old guy is his child. A child has a private equity firm. I mean, he must be a protege, a child protege. But yeah, so they're going to totally go that route. All right, now let's ask you about the 2020 contenders, because we've got these 2020 contenders who are calling themselves populists, right? And some of their stuff I kind of agree on, and I think you probably do too, because like we're totally okay with them like taxing the hell out of Jeff Bezos and like if they want to hit like Jeff Bezos and George Soros, yeah, go for it. But at the same time that they're calling themselves populists, they have nothing to say about illegal immigration. Like, I'm wondering why Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders haven't come out there and said corporations that hire illegal immigrants against American workers, shouldn't they be fined or shouldn't they be gone after? Why are they not talking about that at all, Ann?
Well, I do think it's a mistake. I hope it's a mistake for the sake of the country. And I've noticed, I mean, like I say, some of the smarter liberals seem to be writing about, hey, Democrats running for president, you're getting a little bit crazy. You don't want to just please the social justice warriors because all of the voters whose votes you need think you're out of your mind. So all of the cultural stuff, the gay mayors, the transgenders, the drag queen, holidays or public school
story hours, all that, yeah.
Story hour, right? That's not a big. Please let them keep talking about that because it gets a lot of applause at the Democratic debates. But out in America, there are a lot of Democrats. I'm not entirely sure why they're Democrats and why they haven't figured out that the party hates them. But the more they wake up normal middle-class and working-class Americans of every race, color, and creed to realize that the elite, that the Democratic Party, they are the party of the very, very wealthy and their foot soldiers, whoever is willing to riot and and shoot cops on their side. But it's basically the party of Hollywood and Wall Street, and they really hate the middle class. And I'm telling you, this is a long way of getting around to the immigration issue. If they that is where the rubber meets the road. If they care about, the people whose kids are dying of opium, whose kids are being run over by illegal aliens, whose schools are going under, who can't get jobs because the jobs are being taken by cheap foreign labor, or illegal aliens who don't have to pay, Social Security taxes. And again, this goes far beyond the liberals. Anything they don't have a good argument for, they will scream racism. This has nothing to do with race. It has to do with class. Sorry to sound like a Marxist, but it does. And the working class, in particular, the middle class, increasingly, they are just hated by the Democratic Party. And the immigration issue proves it more than anything. If you care about the working class, if you care about the American middle class, forget about some of the things I care about, like just saving the culture of America, just being a patriot and loving my country and wanting to preserve its national character. Forget all that, which I happen to think is true. As a political matter, you have to out-Trump Trump on immigration if they want to win.
This is a great point, and I think that, as you said, working class people are totally turned off to the Democrats. They're super woke nonsense. It's just, it looks like it's from, outer space.
Yeah, well, it is.
The problem to me, and the reason why we have not brought, the GOP hasn't won even more voters, is because they still haven't figured out the message how to be a working class party on other things. Like when you've got the face of the party, like is Paul Ryan and, Mitch McConnell, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, we need to gut Medicare. That's like their first, we need to gut like Social Security. That's like their go-to position. And we need to do this so that we can give a tax cut to like, Jeff Bezos. That is so loony. That is so crazy. That is such a turnoff towards working class voters. This is why they keep losing, I think, Ann.
That's why I loved Trump the campaigner. Trump the campaign. That would be a good Broadway play. Trump the campaign. Those were wonderful times. To be young again. The Trump campaign was so perfect because it was finally all of the issues that I've wanted the Republican Party to expressly talk about forever. Well, and they haven't, not since Pat Buchanan. And who came out? Somebody just reminded me. I did an interview with Eric Metaxas this week. Sorry, it's the competition. And I was denouncing Ralph Reed for something, for going on about, what Christians stand for. And of course, it had nothing to do with immigration or the borders. It was all the usual neocon tax cut stuff. And somebody emailed me afterwards and said, that he would always, the person emailing me, always hate Ralph Reed for stomping on Pat Buchanan after he had didn't Pat Buchanan beat Dole in New Hampshire? And then he goes to South Carolina next, and the Christian Coalition comes out for Bob Dole. Was it Bob Dole or Bush? No, it was Bush. Of course it was Bush.
Yep. Yeah, the president at the time. It's amazing that you went right back to that, because that was, remember, Pat Buchanan was the one that was telling the GOP, if you lose these voters, meaning these working class voters, you lose your party. These are our people. Yeah. And nobody listened, and that was right, the NAFTA, the giant sucking sound year, and we saw the devastation wrought by all of that. And it wasn't until Trump that they even made this an issue again, this big, giant, gaping wound for Americans, so many Americans.
Funny. I mean, when you think about it, every decade or so, somebody comes along, Pat Buchanan, Ross Perot, Donald Trump, says essentially the same things. Defend the working class Americans, and put Americans before Wall Street. And every time the media is shocked. It's weird. This guy just speaks the truth, and he's popular. How did that happen? It happens every time.
It's not a secret anymore. I know Mr. Hayward wants to jump in, though.
I can't imagine what these Democrat debates would be like if they had questions like the ones Republicans get. Could you imagine if the moderators went after them like they do after Republicans? Because my first question would be, explain how the system you want to impose on America is different from the one they have in China. Could you imagine watching that intellectual brush fire, run among the Democrat candidates? But I think you're right that
Venezuela.
Or Venezuela, right? They're leaving a ton of room, for Trump to get on the other side of them with working class people. They have nothing to offer the working American. They have yet to say a single thing that would help the working American, other than that they think you belong on welfare. They've got a bunch of programs they want to hook you on, benefits. They're trying to help you. But the other thing that they're missing here that's getting them in trouble is they're really solidifying and energizing the Republican base. You look at that LGBT town hall that they did. That is the kind of thing that will set the Republican base on fire. And after that was over, I found myself looking at these, like, the never Trump Republican wing. Like, what are you people smoking? How can you possibly be talking about putting one of these Democrats in charge? What meaningful conservatism would be left in America if these people gain the levers of power and could use them to crush their opponents? And I think that's going to be a real mistake that's going to haunt the Democrats. They needed to suppress the Republican vote, and instead the stuff they're doing is going to energize it like crazy.
I just hope, I totally agree, that transgender debate was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I didn't even see it that night, but in the middle of the night, I woke up and went on Twitter, and God bless Twitter. People were just tweeting out like mad all these little excerpts from it. And one was crazier and funnier than the next. And I really hope Trump's reelection campaign, I don't know, they're all talking about on MSNBC some horrible video that was shown at like a Trump retreat or something.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
Kids. It sounds stupid, but
it was just a meme. It was like a meme that was shown in an empty room, like on a loop, with a bunch of other memes. That's like the media is going crazy.
You see, I knew it. Without knowing BS, I knew it.
It was total BS. It's like,
but they're all hysterical about that. And what it reminds me of is, I just hope whomever is responsible for creating the memes, for creating the ads, and you don't need TV ads. Nobody watches TV. What they need are the social media stuff. All you need to do is keep tape recording these Democratic debates. I do almost all of my I wouldn't even say to present Trump. I would just have clips from that transgender debate.
Yeah, no, that when the 6-year-old who's going through, who's transitioning, or like a 9-year-old, and Elizabeth Warren is like, all wonderful about a 9-year-old being given, irrevocable surgery here. It's loony.
Kamala Harris coming on stage and saying, my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Please play that in Iowa, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, it was
my
just...
My pronouns are...
This is the Democrats.
Beto, well, there's no sense in talking about Beto. He's gone. Elizabeth Warren being really nasty, I was kind of surprised. I mean, for a politician, there is no Republican, I don't think, that would have done that. Even to a question that these are liberals, these are Democrats. They want to force the bakers to make the gay cake. But there was that guy, and he wasn't nasty about it. It wasn't like the liberal questions I get on college campuses. He said to Elizabeth Warren, "What would you say to a person of faith who believes a marriage is between a man and a woman?" So, why? I don't know why George Stephanopoulos or Jake Tapper or whomever are doing these debates. Why they can't ask a question like that is beyond me. Yeah, okay, let's hear. We know you're against. You want to force bakers to bake the cakes, but why don't you say something to me, the person of faith? Perfectly legitimate, quite good question, I think. And she's nasty to him. She said, well, you're a man, so you can marry a woman if you can find one who will have you. Can you imagine? I would have done that to a snippy college student. That's so nasty.
See, that's why she's, even this is why it's like, even though she has some of her positions that I agree with when she talks about the stuff that reform is needed for Wall Street and these guys need to be regulated and all that. But it's the super woke cuckoo stuff that she's gone so far woke that it's a total turnoff.
Oh, yeah, and tip to you, Rebecca, and those of you listening to us who agree with Rebecca and me on hating Wall Street, I promise you, if Elizabeth Warren got elected, suddenly she'd forget about all the Wall Street stuff, and it would just be pedal to the metal on transgenders.
Probably, because this is what we can know for sure with the Democrats. It's like, because this is sadly the same thing with the Republicans. I think that there are Americans, about 70% of us agree on the big issues. Like, yeah, we would like some real basic stuff, And
I agree.
Yet our politics is just dominated by the stupid. Like, you ask, the majority of Americans are like, yeah, secure the border. What the hell, man? Why isn't it secure? Yeah, we don't want illegal immigration. Yeah, we want to have, law and order. Yeah, we'd like to be able to afford our health care, okay? Just help us out here with this. We're willing to pay, but just can you lower the lower this a little bit.
Yes.
All of these basic things that we're totally want. But yeah, we never get it. We want infrastructure.
Totally
yeah,
agree.
we can't get that.
And part of what allows us to never get it is this. I hate to say both sides. Any argument that begins both sides.
No, go for it. Because it's a swamp. Do it. Go.
False. But let me at least say, in terms of like the mainstream media and some of the true, it's too much. Politics has become too much of a my team, your team. Which is why it was very helpful for all those, when Trump was running, to have Republican after Republican going on TV saying, he's not a real Republican. And I'm just sitting there imagining half the country saying, oh, that's right.
Amen.
Thanks for reminding me. They'll definitely vote for him. I spent much of the campaign, going out in New York persuading Bernie Sanders voters that they had to vote for Trump because they agreed on so many things. So I do think that's true. When you do have... there are a lot of areas of agreement, but wow, especially now with this hysteria about Trump. I mean, he could say, I'm going to tax Wall Street. What do you think, America? They'll pay this. I won't destroy them, but they will pay the same tax rate, hedge fund managers, as you do. I think that would win by, whatever 100% is minus the number of hedge fund managers there are.
Oh, totally. Especially now that we know, that they actually do pay way less than just working class Americans, in terms of their tax bracket. It's like a fact now. It's not even up for debate anymore. We know this. So totally. But, again, as you're right, Ann, it's like the team sport aspect of politics now. It's like, oh, you've got the Republican jersey, you got the Democrat jersey, and never the two shall meet. Now we're just going to battle it out. And this is where I think we got stupid. And I look back in our history, and I know that you are a total student of history, too. Your books are wonderful in that. One of my favorites of yours is when you wrote Treason and you cover the Cold War. But in the past,
that's a good
maybe
one.
It was, maybe in the past, because we had that greatest generation that fought together, that stormed the beaches of Normandy, together, they were able to, put these things aside and for the greater good to come together on things. So it wasn't, quite as partisan as it is today. Do you think get that sense maybe?
I blame the greatest generation for the baby boomers.
Come on, they wanted babies. They were cute.
I've never been that soft on the greatest generation.
Don't say that.
I think they got back from the war and thought, screw it, I'm tired. Do what you want. Become a yippie. Join the Weather Underground. Whatever.
Don't be mean. Come on, man. They put it. They did all. But you're absolutely right. The baby boomers are kind of awful. Although we like to pound them, but every generation it seems is getting worse and worse. But
actually, the ones I really like now are the recent college graduates. Now, I don't know what percentage they are, but many of my favorite people on Twitter, I discovered there were two big. One was Charlottesville. The other one was the James Damore thing. He was the Google guy who was fired for saying men and women are different, and I have a PhD in biology from Harvard, so I can prove it. I would have fired him for wasting so much, of his workday writing this 20-page thesis. It may have even been longer than that, carefully footnoted to state the blindingly obvious. But I talked to some Google engineers, and I said, wasn't he just fired for wasting all this time? And he said, oh, no. They don't mind at all if you spend all day on the chat rooms, but if you say men and women are different, oh, no. But anyway, on account of those two things and the left's fantasy about Charlottesville, or at least about Trump defending it, I discovered all these really funny people on Twitter, and on Closer, now that I've been tweeting with them for a while, a lot of them seem to be young men who have been subjected to so many lectures on toxic masculinity and white privilege that, they just keep their heads down. Don't want to insult anyone. I'm not going to get in trouble here. But they emerge, if not enraged, at least extremely funny.
Exactly. I think that's a great point. I know, Mr. Hayward, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, it's funny. The Republicans for so long were so bloodless, and they would talk about things that had nothing to do with the lives of ordinary people. And until Trump came along, they weren't trying to connect with the working men. But now you look at the Democrats, and they're trying to reprogram you. They're trying to turn your kids into some kind of gender fluid android. They're trying to rewrite your entire life. They're going to destroy your church. They promised to do that at the LGBT forum. They've got all these plans to just remake people, and yet for years they've been telling me that Trump was the authoritarian one. And
yes. Yes.
And
That's very
we're gonna,
good. Yes, I mean it's
another
always
dose of it
sort of
tonight.
funny in its own right when they call this utterly ineffective. Wants to. I always say he has the exact opposite personality of an authoritarian. He tells everyone, "Oh, terrific, fantastic, incredible job. We love the Dreamers." I mean, totally against everything he believes. It's just, everybody is always the greatest person ever. His policy is whatever he was told by the last person he talked to. I just remember Stalin going around. Oh, they're incredible people. Incredible. The Chinese. We have the best relationship. I mean, he's like the molecular opposite of an authoritarian. And yes, you're right, John. They're trying to distract us from the absurdity of that by being actual authoritarians themselves.
Yeah, and
Exactly
this is why they don't have a chance, I think. And I mean, they should have a chance, because this is what's hilarious about our politics today. And this is something I loved in your book, Resistance is Futile, and in Trump We Trust. Both of your books really cover this, and it's wonderful. Is you write about how this is the last guy in the world, any of us would have voted for. We voted for him because he was the only one saying this. And that is an indictment of our elites. If they want to call him a vulgarian and all of this other stuff, well, it's an indictment of you, our elites, because you were unwilling to even say the basic, obvious stuff here that this guy was willing to. So we voted for him, Yes.
Yes. Why can't they? No, the Democratic Party and the Republican, their motto is throw out the baby and keep the bathwater. No, give us the policies with an elegant person.
Exactly. We would vote for that person. It was always the policies, Okay, so final thought then, because we're talking about that. Now, Trump's 2020 chances in regards to impeachment, too, because there's an article by Jonathan Swan, who's always gets the inside scoop on these different things. And he's writing about how there are some in the White House that are just sort of blithely naive about the Senate, saying, the Senate's never going to vote against Trump. And then there are others that are a little bit nervous looking at, Mitt Romney, Ben Sass, and these characters saying, they might, who knows? How do you see the impeachment thing, impacting 2020, or will it at all? Do you think that?
I think it's going to help Trump. There are three things. One is I wouldn't worry about the Sasses and the Romneys. You need 2/3 of Republicans. And yes, I'm constantly denouncing Republicans. I do think they're dickweeds and they hate us and they're morons. But one thing they're reasonably good at is figuring out, how am I going to win re-election? And I put it to you that any Republican who votes to remove Donald Trump is going to have one hell of a time winning his re-election. So no, I don't see there's any way that he will actually be removed. But it is good. I realize this impeachment makes me more likely to vote for him. And frankly, I was a little testy with the president. But apart from the craziness of the Democrats running for president, who knows? Maybe somebody else could come along. Who would?
Bloomberg is sounds like he might actually. It sounds as if he's testing the waters. There's been reports.
I think he would get more than any of the current Democrats running for president.
Ooh.
I don't think he'd win because he's open borders. If he would credibly, but I'm not believing any turncoats or even if they're turning to my side anymore. You just can't trust them unless they're Chris Kobach or us. They've written for Brietbart. But the reason this makes me more inclined to vote for Trump is not only do I hate Democrats, even more than before. I mean, they won't get anything done. All they will do is be hysterical about Trump. And it's getting kind of boring and it's really annoying me. So just for irritating the crap out of me, I'm going to vote for the opposing team. But the other thing that I think should be, well, I consider it just a wonderful thing. I've been saying, no, we have to keep Trump's feet to the fire. This is our last chance to get any of this immigration stuff out of him. If he won't do it in his first term when he's worried about re-election, he sure as heck is not going to do it in his second term. And then I realized, wait a second, the Democrats are never going to stop trying to impeach him. He does have an incentive to build the wall second term.
Exactly. Oh, my God. That's a great point to end this. Ann Coulter, it's always a pleasure. You're always our favorite. Folks, if you haven't checked out Ann's book, where are you living? Are you under a rock? Get help. Call someone. Her books, Resistance is Futile, in Trump We Trust, Adios America, and all the others. Thank you so much, Ann.
Good.